Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mod Toussaint Como. This is the channel where we vlog and thought about fragrances, arts, and as you know, I've developed several series over time, and I have my happiness over 50 series. The idea by now, as you know, it's a mod thing, is to just follow our heart and embracing you in the journey with me if you care to join me. So I have this series, Happiness Over 50, and I'll link the previous video out where I talk about that he won't change. Almost everyone that I have experienced, they have certain dominant trait, and it's not our job or our right even to try to change that in order to fit a mode that we've assigned to that particular person. But what I talked about was it is important to be gracious about it. And someone asked me, how can you be gracious? That's obviously something I have thought a lot about. For a long time, I've been really attracted by this concept of being gracious. Incidentally, if you look at how to be gracious, traditionally it's thought about being almost precious. From Victorian time, having the right manner, presenting yourself in a graceful way, wear some pearl necklace. You know, even people would tell you the way you dress is going to convey whether you are graceful or not. All of this count, I suppose, but clearly when we're talking about relationship and the importance to be graceful, we're moving beyond what you look like, what fragrance you're wearing, what fragrance is for the gracious person or makes you feel or project graciousness. I don't know if any clothes or any fragrance can do that for anybody. So what we're talking about is how can we be gracious. When I talked about being gracious in our relationship with other people, what do we mean by that? So this is what this is about. It occurred to me a very long time ago that being gracious really had to do with being mature and being strategic. That's the only way I felt that it really makes sense to be gracious. Because the reason is, I don't know if it is our nature not to be reactive, not to be consuming when our emotion is involved. But when you hear expression like grace under fire, that's really talking about a strategy, a certain maturity to be calm under a situation that triggers us. And that's a very attractive notion, because when we let go of our emotion, at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to really serve us. Perhaps there are people out there who delight in major conflict, but most of us wish our conflicts could be resolved and want to live in peace. And not being mature enough to embrace gracefulness, to be gracious about things, to be strategic about things, is not going to get us to that happiness level. So this is why being gracious is not just a Victorian time old age gallantry, although I suppose in a way, if you're very gallant in the way you connect with people, and if it's a way of thinking and it's a way of living, it will transpire into your being. and ultimately make you gracious. But what happens when we are in situation that someone is doing things that's triggering us, that we are feeling that we've been made wrong to, and we are not sent and we want to react? So that's the graciousness that we are talking about here. And it really comes with maturity. It doesn't come with perfection. We're going to falter. We're going to sometimes let go of our emotion and be upset about things, and sometimes not be graceful about things. So this is why I say it takes maturity, it takes training, it takes a strategy. It takes a strategy. And it takes always be thinking about what we do, that we are not exercising our willingness to be gracious. So what do we do when we are in a situation where we are in a relationship where there's a lot of drama into it? How can you be gracious about that? That's really the situation. Because very often, because we are in survival mode, we really almost cultivating drama. And we become perhaps addicted to the drama. We get engrossed in the drama. How it is that we can get out of that? I think that strategically we have to recognize that when it comes to relationship, and it's really working with the willing. It's really working with the willing. I think my first attempt at being candid in front of the camera was talking about being in my first relationship, my first boyfriend, and having so much difficulties letting go of it after the person had basically broken up with me. And I said that was the thing that I did that was not gracious, although I wasn't, upset with the person, but my reaction, not accepting it, didn't reflect self-graciousness in terms of strategically accept that. And the maturity, I just didn't have the maturity. So sometimes we perhaps have to pray for the maturity to be willing to just only recognize we can only work with the willing. Each person has their will. We should recognize that there are some people, perhaps no matter what they do, we're not going to want to be with them. We're not going to love them. I know it's hard for us to think that other people are not loving us as much as we are loving them. But the maturity of things tell us that it is possible for it to happen. If we can feel that way about someone, like not really loving them, then they can feel that way about us. And it takes courage, it takes maturity. It has nothing to do with us. It has to do with the luck of the draw. So I feel like in terms of strategy to be graceful, to have graciousness, we have to recognize the first rule is we can only work with the willing. Just work with the willing. Look, there's like billions of people on earth. We're bound to find the person who is willing to love us as much as we are willing to love them. So that's the first thing, guys. First strategy, work with the willing. This is the only way we can exercise grace and not get into addictive drama situation of, oh, I'm thinking so much about this person, when the person is not even thinking about us. Clearly, if you're the one calling, you're the one testing, all the time, the person may be responding and your text is like 20 pages long. Okay, people can be busy, but his is like consistently one line. You are over sharing your emotion, you are over giving. Therefore, the same way you would like to, you recognize that there are people you don't want to work with, you need to recognize that you are not the person this person wants to work with. There are billions of other people that can work with you, that can be willing. So work with the willing, guys. Don't take it personal that whatever, we love people, blah blah blah, and they're not giving as much. If they're not giving as much, it's a good clue. Don't try to overthink it. Okay, if someone breaks up with you and the person is like, I love you, but I have to break up, I'm like, okay, I love you, but I have to say goodbye, nice meeting you. It's as simple as that, you know, and just to move on. And it's like, this universe is infinite, and in the grand scheme of things, one relationship with one person is so almost meaningless when the two are not together into it, when they weren't aligned, their commitment weren't aligned. If the commitment is not aligned, you're not able to work with the willing. Upsetting yourself over it is not exercising gracefulness. And wanting the person to love you, wanting the person to change into a being that's loving you, that's not exercising grace. That's not exercising strategic, emotional intelligence. That's when, you know, we really need to know this has nothing to do with the person. And then we might even turn around to get upset with the person. That's the worst. You know, people have the right. People have the right. They have the wills. We just have to make sure we're only just working with the willing. So once we're working with the willing, we're working with the other emotion, the other energy that's open to commit to the level of our friendship. Then we know we can have a relationship that's more based on being graceful, being gentle, and not being so stressful and full of drama because of just one-way street situation. I feel that if I am in a stage in my 50s that makes me feel happy about myself, is truly, truly the fact that somehow, over time, I have garnered the courage to recognize and give people freedom to not love me. Give myself the emotional freedom to understand that it's perfectly okay, to only ensure that I am putting energy where energy is being given to me. Otherwise, I'm getting upset at myself, and that's not a graceful way to live. You know, putting the energy into not accepting situation. I'm not saying that you shouldn't attempt to just be transparent and say, I really want to have this relationship. I'm willing to test you because I'm really interested in investing into this relationship. And if the person is not willing to and is saying I'm not interested, then that's good. But most people are not doing that. They're scared about our emotion when they're still not expending that emotion to us. All they're doing is being cold, and it's being this, it's being that. Hey, I truly feel like if there is one happy situation for me in being in my 50s, is how I feel like it's so okay. It's so okay because there's other places to put energy. You know, when you're in that third life, whatever, second life, almost having emptiness situation, it becomes about the maturity of having transparent relationship. It becomes about the maturity of giving people freedom and accept if they're not putting their energy into you, and just be fine with that. The person asked me, how can you be gracious? I don't know if you're getting me by now, if you're getting that, if you're feeling me. Being gracious is about strategically thinking and being mature about how your reaction is when things are not going your way. And seriously, guys, even in war, I mean, have not studied war or everything, but I remember hearing Colonel Powers saying certain expression like rules of engagement, having a true assessment of your ability to win. To me, that's grace under fire. That's grace even in war. That's a graceful strategy that we have to apply in our life as we are becoming more mature. I mean, age should bring something, and it has to bring the maturity. And even in war, so we essentially almost in war with others, in terms of we have these invisible enemies, which is thought that's going inside people's mind, actions that they are doing, but we don't have an open book that's telling us what it all really means. And then we're getting upset. That means we're not being graceful. Being graceful just means you shut up, you observe, you try to listen, you try to understand, and you try not to overreact and not to overshare what people are not wanting. You try to be balanced and civilized and loving at the same time and understanding at the same time. As I've reached 50, that's been the biggest challenge for me, because I'm not going to say I'm not the most emotional person. Like, I feel like I've literally spent my whole life crying. I literally have cried my eyes out. I remember that's been like my thing. It's like, oh my God, I'm crying. It's like, I suppose a few tears could come out here and there, but I can't imagine flows of tears coming out. Because I feel that at the end of the day, the only salvation that we have, our salvation really is anchored in the honesty that we have with ourselves, which means the honesty to recognize that the other person is doing stuff we don't want, which is he's not extending his feeling that we want them to extend, and we still have to be very gracious about it, because it's not the end of the world. So that's been my story and really my journey about how I have come to the point of really trying to exercise gracefulness and acceptance. And this is why I'm talking about it. And I think to be happy, you have to have this type of maturity in terms of how you're reacting with others, because seriously, most of our problem, let's think about it. Most of our problem is kind of coming from other people. It's kind of coming from how we feel other people have treated us. They have not given us this job that we deserve. Our kids are disrespecting us. This friend is not a real friend. This husband is not really affectionate. You know, most of our problems is coming from things that people are doing to us, that we're not happy about. And this is why other people's problem can just crush us. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know that I have experienced physiological issues because of other people's reaction. You can have small little heart attack that you don't even know about, autoimmune disease, alopecia, all type of issues you can end up having because of what other people are doing to you, and the fact that we are not mature enough to strategically realize that we have to be gracious about things. And it means we have to take a deep breath. We have to be mature to say we only want to work with the willing, and we have to drop the conversation that's not lifting us up right away, and we go for a walk. We have to have the courage to drop the person who's not lifting us up. Sometimes we may not be able to lift them physically, but emotionally, we always have the power to lift someone emotionally, which means that person no longer has the power to get us so upset because we see where they are. We see that they're not loving us as much as we're loving them, when we could put our energy into loving ourselves, doing things for ourselves, which is really great. Like, seriously, I have become the biggest gifter to myself, and maybe that's why I'm like loving fragrances and stuff like that. I'm fortunate to have people who are still giving me, who are loving me and everything, but I seriously feel that the best gift are the ones I give to myself. And that gift needs to be the maturity to exercise emotional intelligence, exercise grace in my acceptance of other people. This person had asked me what my take on how to be graceful. And clearly the person meant, how can you really be graceful when people are doing stuff that's really getting on your nerves? Because that's really when you need to have the grace. Because even in war, people have to exercise intelligence. Even if they have the big old weapon, they have to know, is this other person's weapon stronger than mine? It is bigger than us, other people's emotion about us. Because we cannot force it, we cannot mold it, we cannot create it. It is given freely, depending on how the universe has aligned us. So, if our commitment for each other is not in alignment, and we are finding ourselves working with those who do not want to work with us, there is no point to that, guys. I hope this is all you are, even if this is all you remember, work with the willing and let go gracefully, emotionally or physically, of the energies that are not serving us, of the energies that are not returning our emotion, our love, and our actions. Being at the level of maturity where I understand these things, have been part of the journey that makes me feel I want to share those thoughts with you. Because I have to say, this is the first time in my life where I can squarely look at the emotion of someone not loving me and feeling like, oh my gosh, that is just fine. That's fine. fine, that's fine, that's fine. That's cool. I like you, I love you, but it doesn't have to be projected onto you. I can still move on to other things that wants this energy, that wants it. Because it's precious. Life is precious. Our energy is precious. There is no need to not be graceful, because graceful is a strategy of recognizing this. I mean, it may be that you have to exercise a few tricks even to force yourself to exercise grace. If you find like you being undignified because you calling this person, I mean, the phone is great for that. Make sure that, I mean, I'm not trying to teach you to become too, how would I say that, withdrawn, but if you first meet someone, just put the person's number in there with the phone. You don't have to learn the number. And if you don't learn the number and you don't save it, then if the person is not calling you, then you never really have to call the person. It's like, okay, so you don't save the number. If the person calls you, you can text back. And and then you delete that. And then, you know, clearly once you establish a relationship, then it's something else. But in the beginning, before you invest a lot of relationship and then you get all upset and not being graceful about this person extending the emotion that you want to extend, then don't invest in knowing this person phone number. Don't invest in creating the closeness physically with the person if you don't feel that you can control yourself. You are mature enough to accept that the person has the will to test who he or she wants to have a relationship with. I don't know. I mean, I haven't been in dating scene or any form of relationship first, but I do feel that it applies to just really everything in life where we feel obsessive about stuff. Because whenever we start feeling obsessive about stuff, that means we're not exercising emotional maturity. Therefore, we cannot be graceful about it because we're upset and we are telling the person off and we are doing things like that when none of this is warranted, because at the end of the day, strategically, don't work with the person who's not willing. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Until next time, bye.